99% of people in America have PFAS, short for polyfluoroalkyl substances, or better known as forever chemicals, in their blood, with approximately 200 million people currently exposed to PFAS through drinking water. These numbers ring alarm bells in the superpower nation, the United States. PFAS, the forever chemicals, lives up to its name with its terrifying consequences. Surviving over time, what diseases are associated with these chemicals? What items can contain PFAS? Over $10 billion is the amount that the chemical conglomerate 3M in the US will pay in the largest drinking water settlement in American history. The US government had also taken many new actions. However, all of this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to PFAS. How can we limit the use or expose to forever chemicals? Please join us in exploring the story of today's world affairs. If you're like 200 million other Americans when you turned on your tap today, you consumed water contaminated with PFAS, short for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, but better known as forever chemicals, because that's about how long they linger in the environment. A class of nearly 12,000 manufacturing chemicals, PFAS, have been detected in water supplies in the US and have been linked to a range of health ills, including decreased fertility, high blood pressure in pregnant people, increased risk of certain cancers, developmental delays and low birth weight in children, hormonal disruption, and reduced effectiveness of the immune system. The CDC estimates that 99% of Americans have PFAS in their blood, said Melanie Benesch, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Environmental Working Group, a nonprofit that researches the ingredients in household and consumer products. We estimate that 200 million Americans are exposed to PFAS in their drinking water right now. As ubiquitous as PFAS are, the reason they haven't generated more outrage among the public may be that the damage from PFAS chemicals isn't immediate. They affect health over time with repeated exposure. People aren't getting headaches or coughing from exposure to PFAS, Bennett said, but they are getting cancer a few years down the line and they don't understand why. In the US, the chemical conglomerate 3M will allocate $10.3 billion over 13 years to support cities, towns, and public water management agencies in testing and treating PFAS. The largest drinking water settlement in American history occurred when 3M faced thousands of lawsuits regarding water contamination linked to forever chemicals. According to Time, this is also the largest settlement to date for a PFAS manufacturer, but it is likely not the last. With the prevalence of these chemicals and their concerning effects, there will surely be more lawsuits in the future. Most of the contamination that the communities have suffered comes from the use of firefighting foam, which leaches into the ground after it's been used, especially on military bases, at airports, and by local firefighters, both in actual fires and in drills. Older firefighting foam contained PFOA and PFOS, especially toxic forms of PFAS. They have since been replaced by a relatively new type of PFAS known as Gen X, which was developed in 2009 and was ostensibly safer than other members of the PFAS family, but is not. Indeed, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, Gen X is unsafe to consume in drinking water in any concentration higher than 10 parts per trillion. But for the past 14 years, it too has been seeping from foam into the surrounding environment, just like PFOA and PFOS. It's not just firefighting foam that causes trouble. Other contamination comes from the chemical manufacturing plants themselves, located in states that are the origin of some of the lawsuits, which produce PFAS for thousands of products, including clothing, non-stick cookware, food packaging, carpeting, shoes, beauty products, wall paint, contact lenses, and even feminine hygiene products. A proposed federal rule calls for forcing companies to disclose whether their products contain toxic forever chemicals, the U.S. government's first attempt at cataloging the pervasiveness of PFAS across the United States. Companies would have to disclose any PFAS that have been manufactured or imported between 2011 and when the rule takes effect, with no exemptions for small businesses or for impurities or byproducts cross-contaminating goods with PFAS. Those disclosures would be available to the public, barring any trade secrets linked to the data. The EPA will finalize the rule in the coming months, agency spokesperson Catherine Milburn said, then require companies to report back within 12 months. The chemical and semiconductor industries are grumbling about what the EPA estimated is a potential $1 billion cost to comply with the rule. The U.S. chemical industry says it generates more than $500 million annually. On the other side, environmental health activists say the data collection exercise would be flawed, as it accounts for only a tenth of the more than 12,000 PFAS chemicals, which are used in everything from non-stick cookware to kids' school uniforms. Moreover, they say it wouldn't stop PFAS from making their way into the air, waste, or consumer products, nor would it clean up existing contamination. U.S. Congress gave the EPA the power to track PFAS chemicals in 2016 when it revised the Toxic Substances Control Act, when a bipartisan effort in 2019, which Republican President Donald Trump signed into law, called for the EPA to inventory PFAS. However, health activists warn that unless Congress overhauls U.S. chemical laws to give the EPA and other agencies more power, PFAS will continue to threaten humans and the environment. 1,364 types of PFAS may be covered by the rule. By contrast, the European Union is discussing banning or limiting 10,000 PFAS chemicals, according to Hannah-Kaisa Tokali, a spokesperson for the European Chemicals Agency. In the U.S., chemicals are innocent until proven guilty, said Kyla Bennett, Director of Science Policy at Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility, a nonprofit based outside Washington, D.C. In the EU and Japan, chemicals are guilty until proven safe, and that's why they have fewer PFAS. So, how to limit the use and exposure to forever chemicals? The lack of regulation in the U.S. is driving states to take matters into their own hands, pursuing PFAS bans as gridlock and industry lobbying in Washington throughout tougher federal laws. Minnesota's crackdown on PFAS limits the chemicals in menstrual products, cleaning ingredients, cookware, and dental floss. Maine's law will ban all avoidable uses of PFAS by 2030. Vermont and California ban PFAS in food packaging. Additionally, the U.S. military is moving to limit PFAS after a report said more than 600,000 troops were exposed to the toxic chemicals in drinking water contaminated largely by PFAS-laden firefighting foam. Just cleaning up PFAS waste at U.S. military bases could cost at least $10 billion. Removing it from U.S. drinking water supplies could add more than $3.2 billion annually to the bill, according to a report commissioned by the American Water Works Association. In Europe, EU members are strengthening the management of forever chemicals. Specifically, Denmark has banned the use of these substances in food packaging since 2020. Along with Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Norway, Denmark is calling for a complete ban on PFAS throughout the EU territory. This action could take effect as early as 2025. According to the Washington Post, each of us can limit consumption of canned food, fast food, microwave popcorn, non-stick cooking utensils, Store food in glass containers in the refrigerator. Stay away from plastic items and install specialized filters to remove PFAS from tap water. In a statement accompanying the lawsuit settlement, 3M Chairman Mike Roman pointed to the state-of-the-art filtration technology the company has installed in its plants and its commitment to exit all PFAS manufacturing by 2025. The resolution of the lawsuit is, he added, an important step forward for 3M. But 3M is unlikely to stick away on the $10.3 billion settlement alone. Nor will DuPont and two of its spin-off companies, Chemours and Corteva, which on June 2nd reached a much more modest $1.18 billion settlement with another 300 drinking water providers. More than 3,000 claims remain unsettled in the South Carolina MDL. What's more, DuPont and 3M will not be alone among the defendants likely to face big payouts. So too will the companies that knowingly manufacture products using PFAS produced by the two chemical companies. There's going to be probably 20 plus defendants who have their fingerprints on the MDL, says Michael London of the New York law firm Douglas & London. Some will settle early, some will settle in the middle, some will settle late. Whenever they settle, it is already too late for the communities that have been harmed and for the vast majority of Americans who have been drinking water, wearing clothes, cooking with utensils, and using other products contaminated with PFAS. Legal settlements come and go, but forever chemicals are with us, well, forever. And that concludes the world affairs for now. Please stay tuned for upcoming broadcasts featuring other pressing issues. Goodbye and see you again.